Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to use pivot transforms in SSIS. Most of you must have been familiar with pivot transforms or pivot tables in Excel. It is the same type of a thing, but it is used in SSIS. So let's go and start. Shoot up the Visual Studio and let's start a new project. Integration with transform. It is already there. Let's save the transform 2. Let's drag the before we do anything, just drag the data flow task into the control flow, double click it, move to the OLE database source. In this video I'm going to use the Access database for the source from where the data is coming to be getting to the pivot. So I'm going to select the new, and I happen to know that this is my database and this is the table. Let's preview the data. This is the data. This is the salesman customer ID, day, month, amount. This is how the database is represented in the table. Now I want to change this data, how it is being presented. That is what is actually meant by pivoting, means you display one of the data in the table as a column rather than as a column. So let's close it and let's go to the column and click OK. Now once you have done that thing, let's move to we have got the OLED source. Now after selecting the OLED source, I want to pivot that data, so I will drag in the pivot transform and I will select it to do this column. Now what happens is that once you go to the input column, you double click it, the pivot transform, and go to the input column. Select all the columns. In this case I will just, for a temporary time, to make it things easier, I will just mark this thing out, day, month, year, ID, and I'll just keep the 3 columns. Okay, and I'll click OK. Yet it is not actually configured correctly. Let's go and see. Before we configure, you have to remember that pivot tables require 3 types of usage. There's 0 is not needed. 1 is needed, that's to set the key. The key would be coming on the left side of the column. Pivot set key, that is known as set key. Pivot key, that will be coming on the top, and the pivot value, that will be coming below the column. The other columns you want to send it to the pivot table are set through the pivot usage value of 0. That is, they are known as pass through. So this 1, 2, 3 are very important. Without these 3 keys, identifying these 3 keys, you cannot create a pivot table correctly. So let's go back and identify these keys in our requirement, and so that we can have a pivot table created. Now we have selected this input columns. To simplify the matter, I've just kept this key outside. You can consider this thing as a pass through key. That's why we do not require, we have 3 keys, and let's see 3 keys. Now the sales ID is the key, I would say, as the pivot usage 1, and this I will take it as 2. So this is the column on the top, and these are the values of the column 3. Now that I have this thing done, what's important in this thing, you have to remember, you have to create a output column to map to the input column. But when I want to create an output column, the important thing is to note that I have to remember the lineage ID to link the output column to the input column. So in this case, I have 17. When I create a new column known as sales ID, I go from here and in the source column I will put it as 17 because this column lineage ID is 17. Now the other thing that's very important for me is that salesman customer ID. Salesman customer ID, I happen to know there are 16 values in it that are unique. That is what I want to be coming on the top of the columns. The sales ID would be coming on the side, at the left hand side or the right hand side, whatever side it would appear, but the columns would be salesman. There are 16 distinct values, so 16 distinct values from 1 to 16. So I will have to enter 1 to 16 values here in the column and link it to the amount, because I do not want the salesman customer ID values on the contrary. I want the amount value to be coming. So instead of using the lineage ID of the sales customer ID, I will be using the lineage ID of the amount in the 16 values. Let's do it and I will show it to you. In this column, I have not used the private key value because the sales ID is already been defined here. But as I create the new column, I will be using that name here also. So, because it has to have the value. So 1, let me add first 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and 16. Now that you know I have added these things, now I have to link it to the R.N.A ID. But in this case, I will be linking it to the amount, not to the salesman customer ID, though that the ID is, because I want the value in these to be coming from the amount, not from the salesman customer ID, because I know these are ready. I have given it at the top. So the amount has to be, the line is 26. So I go and put the lineage ID here as you can see, source column is 26, and in this value I'll be putting it 1, and again I will say it 26, 2. Let's copy this thing and make things easier a little bit and faster also. 3, 4, 5, I'm just to take the lineage ID for the amount in this column. Now I have to still assign the property key value as the same. As you can see, for 1 I have assigned it, for 2 I have assigned it, for 3 I haven't, so I will say 3, for 4 I have to say 4, 5 again I have to say 5, again 6, then again for 7 I have to go and say 7, again for 8 I have to say 8, again for 9 I have to say 9, and then we have 10. Though this may seems little bit of a repetition, but you have no choice here, as this is the system of, because this is I'm using 2008, maybe in 2012 the things are much better than this thing here, so much more easier. Okay, anyway, so I have put the whole thing. I do not have to put the amount, but the amount would be transferred here. Let's see, it's okay, and we have got everything corrected here. And now I'll bring the multicast of the union all. Yeah. Okay, union all here. And once I bring the union all, this is just, it could be going to the another OLE database or some other place you want it to go. I will just use a data viewer just to show you the value. What happens now? I have configured it. I'm going to run it. I hope it runs correctly. Yes. So as you can see, I have got one value in every column. This is 16 different values that we have collected, and this is the sales ID. This is what the pivot table views look like. Now suppose if you wanted to add one more column here, the problem is, if I want to add one more column, so I will have to have selected it in the input. So once I've selected in input, so I have to also put it in the output here. So the input column is sales name. Okay, I can copy it here. I can create a new column. I can put the same name here. Now again I have to look at the lineage ID. It is 23. Let's go to the source column and 23 and click OK. So far so good. But if I execute it now, it won't still show me the value. You see, it's missing, isn't it? Let's stop the project. The union all doesn't show up that value at all. Something is missing. So better I do a delete. I delete this union all, bring the union all again from the transform and add it, drag it, add the data viewer, add it, take the grid, okay. And now if you see the union all, you can see that has been added. You can have tabbed it easily, but let's do it this way. Now let's click. As you can see, that also has appeared on the side. That is all. Now the one thing that is the problem is that you may have is the data is not shown correctly because the way the columns were added, the only thing you have to take care. However, if you are moving the data to the table, then it should not be a problem at all because the data would be mapped correctly to the table, so it will land up at the correct place. That's all. That's how the pivot table transform is used. I hope it was useful for you. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.